Nation. We're back.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fire the Cannon. I'm Rocky.
And I'm Megan, and we are Fire the Cannon.
Look at that. On time, loud, and only once.
I'm very proud of you. Very proud
It
of you.
only took 5 years. All right, welcome back, Megan. So much is happening at Texas right now, so we have so much to talk about. But first, let's catch up a sec. How are you doing?
I'm good. I just want to give folks a quick heads up. I don't know if you can see his nose poking in here, but it's raining a little bit in Austin. So of course that means, yeah, that my 165-pound dog is going to absolutely lose his mind and be terrified of everything. So if he bumps in, I apologize. He's trying to be a cuddle bug right now. So we'll see how that works in this small space. But it's we need the rain. I am absolutely not complaining. It just cracks me up that this dog that is so massive, like he is human size and you'd think he's big and tough. Absolutely not the case. He is the biggest sissy you will ever meet. So
all right. Well, we have a big announcement in our Longhorn family. I think that's pretty cool that we should share a surprise announcement. We have a new baby Longhorn that we didn't know we were getting.
Yeah. Oh, the little baby popped up and surprised. I feel like all but like one or two of the Longhorns that we've got have been surprise babies. For those of you that might not know, I've had so many people ask me, like, how did you not know that they were pregnant? How did you not know
here's our little Longhorn.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, so I know I've mentioned this before, but Longhorns actually put off really, really small babies. And this picture is great. This is literally this little dude is a few hours old at this point. And yeah, I've had a lot of people ask, like, how do you not know they're pregnant? Well, Longhorns put off small babies, right? So you can't always tell. And they don't always get real big, not like some other cattle do, not like some other animals do. So it can be a surprise, especially if your Longhorns are kind of fattening up, where you feed them a lot of good food, they get a little fat on treats. It's hard to tell. So yeah, surprise from, Chuck sent us that photo. Real excited. New baby born on the ranch. And I think we've landed on a name. Mama's name is Jordan, so it felt only right. Rocky, you want to tell the name?
We have a theme of Longhorn legends, right? And like you said, the mama is Jordan. So we named the baby Colt because we didn't have a Colt. And here's baby Colt with Mama Jordan. So this is our new baby. We're excited. We'll get out there soon and go give them lots of love and welcome new baby.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is beautiful Jordan. She's so Jordan, Shipley, Barbara Jordan, all the great Jordans, Jordan Spieth, all the great Jordans of Texas, legend.
Absolutely.
So that's our super cute baby that we didn't even know we were getting. And then Chuck messaged us with Diamond Nest Ranch, the one we talk, Rockin' Diamond Nest Ranch, we talk about at the show every week. The Longhorns are there, and he told us there's a new baby. So that's exciting. What up, ladies? CB, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We have a lot to talk about today. So we have all the things that are happening on the 40, right? Texas Spring Camp, lots of reports coming out of Spring Camp. NFL Pro Day happened. So we'll talk about the highlights of Pro Day, Quinn Ewers, Jade, who worked out, who didn't, who was limited, who was in a boot. For the Pro Day, all those things. And then, of course, how that affects NFL draft. And we'll see if there's any shakeup since after free agency and the combine and all those things, there was a lot of shakeup in the NFL draft projections for some Longhorns. And then Isaiah Bond had a very bold prediction about where Texas will rank with the number of players he expects to go into the NFL draft. So we'll talk about that. Of course, March Madness, and there's March Madness happening on the 40 acres too, with our beloved Rodney Terry. Things didn't work out. He's moving on. Texas brought in Sean Miller. It was all ready to go like CDC does. Has one, when we were younger, Megan, we would say you always have a spare tire in case you get a flat. CDC always has a spare tire in case he gets a flat.
I tell you what, we'll definitely talk about that pick. We'll definitely
Yeah,
talk about the new ones coming. Yeah, it's
yeah.
lots going on. It's funny. We
Women's
think,
basketball,
oh,
Sweet 16. We'll talk about all of it tonight. Baseball with the wins the series. We have so much to talk about, Megan. So much to talk about
we
tonight.
do, we do,
Softball,
we
all of
do.
it. All of it. We're going to talk about all of it. Don't worry. All right. So yes, our new Longhorn is super special. So we'll share updates as we get to go out and see the new baby colt. But first, Megan, spring football is in session. Everyone's been waiting for Texas football to get back in the swing of things with all the new faces on campus and the new the new recruits, but mostly too like the new coaching staff as well. We know Sark had talked about in his press conference a couple weeks ago or so about the new, not just getting the new players on board, but the returning players, but also there's a whole new coaching staff that needs to get on board. What are you most excited about this spring? And just like throw out, what are you hearing that really has you excited about spring ball so far?
Yeah, look, I think there's always a bit of trepidation, right? We don't know what
Mhm.
we're getting. And for those that love, the spring game, we're not getting that either. So really, we've got to gather all that we can right now during spring ball, during pro days. Like, obviously, we're going to hear about that. We're going to talk about that. But I think for me, it's the anticipation. Look, I'd be silly if I didn't say it is now Arch era. We are in our Arch era. So, I'm excited for that. Is he going to live up to the hype? Is he everything
Woo, the
that
hype.
we think he is? Is it even possible to live up to that kind of crazy hype that's surrounding
Can
him with that
anyone?
name? Right, right. So, yeah, I mean, for me, first and foremost, I think that's going to be really the biggest thing that I'm nervous about, excited for, looking forward to. But I'm really, I think I've got a little bit of anxiety, Rocky. Like we talk about this, I'm a little curious what our O line is going to do. What does our O line look like after so many have left? We had one of the
The
most
whole
experienced.
line.
Yeah, I mean, we had one of the most experienced O lines in the nation last year, and I think a lot of times it's easy to overlook the role of the O line in the overall success of a team, right? The great teams that Texas has had with those national championship runs or national championship victories has all started with an incredible O line. And so, who's going to step up? Who are we going to see? Who's really going to fill those really big shoes that are left empty there? So, a little bit of anxiety there, if I'm being honest, a little bit nervous about that. How about you? What you got you excited about spring ball?
I'm all about the Arch era. We got teases of those moments. The hype, like you mentioned, the hype. Is it real? Can anyone live up to those expectations? The way the media has built him up, and hopefully not just to tear him down, but the way the media has built up being a Manning, coming from a legacy of Super Bowl champions. There's just so much expectation. But then we see from the early reports out of campus, not only is he just dropping dimes, right? Everywhere, deep, shallow, across, like everything. Not only is he dropping dimes and making all the throws, he's doing it with fluidity, and he's doing it with confidence and without hesitation. And he's the vocal leader, like different style than Quinn has been, right? Quinn is a leader, no doubt. He led the team, especially when there were precarious moments like 4th and 13, right? Against Arizona State. Quinn was the leader in those moments, no doubt. And the defense has even said Quinn was the leader in those moments for the offense. So, but different style of leadership we're hearing already, of Arch being a very vocal leader and, calling the plays and showing up quick and ready to run this offense. I like that you mentioned about not having a spring game, and why they're not having a spring game was something that we should chat about real quick, because going into the spring season, it's important to remember what Coach Sark was saying about how spring is going to happen this year and why it's happening differently. So I'm going to play that for you real quick, and then we'll chat about it. Why spring is happening differently this year.
27 new faces on my roster that I need to take time to develop. And that development starts at the beginning of spring ball where we've got to really build a foundation of understanding the whys of what we do, from how we practice to the drills that we do, to the foundational aspects of the offense, the defense, the special teams, of where we build and then where we grow from there. Now, the challenge for us as a coaching staff is to grow quickly. That we've got to build the foundation, then we've got to grow, because I do believe we have a talented football team, but we have some youth and we have some inexperience. And I'm really, pressing upon everybody in our program, coaches, staff members included, to take the next step. And to develop the leadership that's needed on this team, because who we were a year ago individually, we've got to be better than this year, right? We can't remain the same. So everybody's got to grow, and that's the task that we're challenged with.
All right, everybody's got to grow, including the coaching staff. Megan, we remember they brought on different, coaching staff, their shifts around, and we'll talk about Dwayne Aquino being back on campus. But what do you think, how do you think important that is to switch up the way he's going to? He talked about more of an NFL model of really focusing on individual development, not so much ones versus twos, but really keying in on skill set development. Oh, you're muted. Sorry. I think the audio muted you. I think the audio.
No, I muted me because my dog has been encroaching on my space. Right. Yeah. Look, I think it's a little bit of coach speak, if I'm just being 100% honest here. And the reason I will say that is because it's not a shift from what Texas has been doing, right? If you look at what Sark came in with this program year one, it's always been about, and what he's done at programs previous, it's always been about player development. It's always been about, like, the kind of offense that he runs, the kind of program that he runs is more geared towards an NFL style, right? The way that he treats his players, the way that things are structured. So I don't know, to me a little bit, I kind of feel like I don't feel like this is a new or different approach that Texas and his staff have been taking since he's been here. There might be a few small tweaks here and there, but overall as a program, not really. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's a massive shift, and that's a good thing. Let me be clear about it. That's a good thing. I mean, I think we've seen the benefits of this approach of player development and getting them ready for the NFL. We talked about it, when the previous draft day, unprecedented number of Longhorns drafted. We've got some to talk about that too when we talk about pro days coming up. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing that they're already set up like this. I don't know that it's going to be such a shock to the system. What are your thoughts on it?
So he talked about that NFL model, and he even mentioned in that press conference about, because the season is extended NFL style. I mean, we now have, 12 regular season, and then hopefully you're in a conference championship game, and then you start playoffs, and if you're lucky you get a first round bye of the playoffs, but if not, you're playing another game, so then you get into the top 8, so it's the quarterfinal, semifinal, so they could be playing NFL level games over a long season. So we talked about that too, about that it's just that they really need to focus on making sure they have depth, making sure everyone's on the same page, they're all in alignment. Remember, he used to use that word a lot more than he's used lately, but he mentioned about not just the players, but the coaching staff, that they all need to be in alignment, right? So here they go, they kick off spring ball, and they're already reports are coming out that they're doing a lot more skill and development of individuals. So that's already coming to fruition. What he said was going to happen, the way he was changing it up, is already happening. So that's pretty exciting, especially when you have the NFL Combine, which we'll talk about in a minute. I mean, the NFL Pro Day, that development, they're taking the development up another level. So I'm sure the NFL scouts and who are there are also have an ear out for how the development is happening at another level now at Texas. The plan for it to raise it up even more. That's impressive. All right, so let's get into one of the exciting things always happens when the new spring ball comes is the rosters. Like, the rosters are released, right? And the exciting, like, people who left their numbers behind, Number 1 is always exciting. You know, Xavier Worthy left 1, Justice Finkley left 1. So it's always exciting to see who gets to wear 1, because that's a big deal. It looks like Colin Simmons, and why not? Because he is like all over the country. He's won freshman awards. He's got all this hype for being one of the top returning defensive players in the country. Colin Simmons is going to be number 1. What do you think about that, Megan? Being number 1, Colin Simmons.
Look, I like it. I have no qualms with it whatsoever. I think Colin's really stepped up and showed us what he can do. So hell yeah, wear that number 1 proud, man. I think that, like you said, that's big shoes. There's a lot of responsibility with that number. So show up and show out, my friend. I love it. I love it.
And it's the one that's in the always in the co-op or the jerseys. Anytime you buy a jersey, it comes with a number 1 on it, right? 99% of the time, it comes with a number 1. Michael Terry, young freshman, still figuring out his position. He's going to be number 11. That's exciting for Collins, for Michael Terry. And then a few other players put out what jersey number they're going to be wearing. Also, Jonah Williams, we saw him. We'll talk about baseball in a bit. We saw him have his little baseball premiere. That was fun. He's going to be number 9 with the football team. So do you happen to see what number he was with baseball? Now that I'm just thinking about it, was he also number 9 with baseball?
Yeah, No. He's you're putting me to the test.
Not,
right
sorry, I put you on the spot. That's so bad.
You did. I think he's 50.
I was wondering if you noticed.
7?
Oh yeah, it's probably some random number, right? Yeah, I'm sure you're right. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I was wondering, like, it just popped in my head. I wonder if he's the same number in baseball or not, because that would be pretty cool if you can.
He is not. I can tell you for sure.
You have that kind of pool.
Yeah.
All right. But of course, the thing that everybody wants to talk about is, again, Arch Manning. This is from our buddy CJ Vogel, who got some great video at the practice of, I think, and this is a pass to Parker Livingstone. I'll show you here. Parker Livingstone, another big name coming out of early camp time. Here, I'll play it for you. Let's start it. Is it playing? There we go. What great route running. A shallow route and then a corner route, Parker Livingstone. Lots of word right now early that Parker Livingstone is going to be that number 3 receiver with Wingo. DeAndre Moore, we know, is out for the spring, well, resting early in the spring with it, recovering from an injury. And so that gives players like Parker, Dale McCutcheon, Parker Livingstone, the young freshmen like Jamie French, those Lockett, that gives them a lot of reps, which is good because we know what DeAndre Moore can do. We saw him in big moments, especially at Vanderbilt when the game was on the line. At Vanderbilt,
right,
the game was on the line. DeAndre Moore was the hero of that game. So, any names you're hearing? We'll start with offense that you're excited about early in camp talk.
Well, listen, now that Wingo's had that LASIK surgery, I'm excited to see what he can do now that he can actually see the ball, right? Now that he can actually see it. Yeah, CB, thank you. I was waiting for the right time to say it. I did look it up. Jonah's 55. I was close.
Oh, thank you. You were close. You were close. I put you on the spot, and you were still close. Yeah.
You know, my ADHD brain doesn't work that way.
I know,
but yeah, yeah, so Wingo, I'm excited to see him step up. He's had some reps with the team. Really excited to see what he can do. Like I said, now that he can see the ball clearly, not having to squint with the one eye, right? That'll be exciting to see him. Yeah, but again, it's always interesting to me to see who makes the connection, who becomes the go-to, who becomes the favorite. We've talked about it ad nauseum. Everybody has about Colt and Jordan, right? Colt and Shipley always had that connection. And even if Shipley was triple covered, didn't matter. Colt was throwing to him and he was going to catch it. So it'll be cool to see who his number 1 guy becomes, who he builds that trust with. But again, I mean, I hate to say this, but I'm going to default back to that O-line. I'm really interested to see how the O-line's jiving, how they're going to protect him. One thing that I think that Arch really is going to provide, and I think is beneficial for Texas in the sense that when you're kind of rebuilding that O-line, you lost a lot of the talent as far as experience goes, and you're still kind of getting your footing on how these guys are going to work out. One huge advantage that Arch has that Quinn wasn't always the best at is running. We know Arch can run. We know the dude is one of the fastest guys on the team, and he's a big
Yeah,
ass kid, right? Like
he's
he is a much
big dude.
larger, yeah, he's a much larger than he looks. So I think that's going to be interesting. Like, how do they use him? Are they going to risk running him? Are they going to put him through? Is that going to be necessary, or is he going
Right.
to really find that connection with his receivers and have his go-to guys? That's something I'm really interested to see how that develops.
Just the threat of it is already another huge dimension in the offense. We'll
Right.
talk about that. We have lots of national media, including Colt McCoy, who have had great audio and video on their thoughts on how the offense could be different and more dynamic or explosive. We see the deep threat. Arch loves the deep ball, right? We see the deep threat already. Just a different game than Quinn, right? A different game than Quinn. So both great games, but just different games. So that could add more elements to an attack, right? An offensive attack. So we'll talk about those when we have more time, but there's so much to talk about today. So let's make sure that we mention one really great thing that everyone's talking about out of the so far early spring camp, Christian Clark. The last year was a true freshman running back who had that Achilles injury right in fall camp, going right before the season started. Already running, looked to be without limitations, no brace, no special jersey or anything. I mean, they're not full pads yet, but he looked to be fluid, mobile, active. Like what? How amazing is that to be? How great would it be to be young and heal quickly? Not, of course, not just all young people don't heal quickly, but it helps when you're young and fit and strong. But how amazing to see him going through those drills yesterday. The video coming out of him going through the drills, just what, 7, 8, 9 months, 8 or 9 months or whatever after Achilles surgery.
Yeah, that's a major surgery. And again, I don't want to overlook the role of Torrey Becton and what he's done for Texas. During
Right.
that Tom Herman era, we had a lot of those soft tissue, and the tissue tears, the worries with that, ligament issues. And it really seems like the strength regiment that he's been putting this team through has helped. We've had some bugs, we've had some injuries, but the recoveries have been really strong. We saw that, recovery has been strong, and even, looking forward to NFL teams didn't back off. So I
Yeah.
really want to highlight, like, Texas is in such a better place with that strength and conditioning and with the program and how they're building these guys up. And yeah, that recovery is incredible. I mean, Achilles can take years to really truly get back. And so the fact that we're talking months, that's bonkers. That's an absolutely incredible recovery.
Yeah, and we've also heard CJ Baxter is coming back stronger, put about 10 pounds of good weight on, which is great because sometimes there's no excuses, right? If you can't do this, do this. And I'm sure Torrey Becton has worked closely with him to what can you do and really work on that. And so it looks like CJ Baxter will even have a little more armor on him as well. Let's look at one more thing before we move on to Pro Day, which also happened yesterday with the announcement of the new coach. Like, just so much is going on the 40. Dwayne Aquina back at Texas, the legend, Michael Huff, Quandre Diggs, all these legendary athletes, former DBU, right? Rod Babers, all the players that were on campus for Pro Day also were really, really vocal about their excitement for Dwayne Aquina being back. And he's already, you can see the clips of him like vocal, leading, getting on the players. And this is what my favorite player, Michael Taft, had to say about Dwayne Aquina and his style of coaching back at Texas.
He's awesome. He's one speed all the time, which is super cool because he's consistent and he's real with us. And talking to all the guys that have been here before, Huff, Quandre Diggs, a lot of these other guys are like, dude, he's going to be so good for you because he's amazing. He's an amazing coach, amazing person. He gets on you quite a lot, but that's really good for you. He's awesome.
All right. He gets on you, but that's good for you.
Understatement of the year. I feel like Coach Aquina has two modes. There's sleeping when he's literally asleep, resting, and there's in your ass, right? Like there's no half mode with him. He is completely on. And watching this man, now that is one thing that I've heard out of spring ball so far, is that Aquina is running with the young bucks. This man is in his 70s. For those of you that were worried about his health or worried about his age, don't worry. He ain't got
Don't
no problem
worry.
keeping up with everybody. He's running up and down and at his full volume and full speed. So it's been really cool to see, you know, former players. You mentioned Huff talking about being reunited, seeing former players come on and say, man, you know, watching clips of him just going into it full tilt, saying, man, that brings back memories. So a lot of love for Coach Aquina on the 40, that's for sure.
That, yeah, I'm so glad he's back. And I love that Taft mentioned the veterans of the program. I mean, Huff has been around the program. Quandre Diggs has been around the program. These are people that they know their records. They know what they accomplished, especially the way Huff has mentored the latest Thorpe Award winner and Jahdae Barron. They trust them. They know them. They have relationships with them. So when Huff tells you, this is the man that put me where I was, you know, where put me to the top and helped me get to the top, that carries way more weight because they're around them every day, right? So, you know, they value, if he says, this is the man, right? Then that carries so much more weight. But it looks like when you see Michael Taft already glowing with talking about Dwayne Aquina, that gets you excited. That good stuff. DBU is I mean, when you have a Thorpe Award winner.
Are you ready to say it?
DBU's back. When you have the Thorpe Award winner,
I love
all Americans in that backfield, draft picks in that backfield, and the stats back it up that they were one of the best secondaries and in a lot of statistics, the best secondary in the country. DBU is back. Now, can they do that consistently year after year? That we'll see. Is DBU back, Megan?
DBU's back, baby. I have faith.
All right. So let's look ahead. So speaking of DB, hold on. So let's look ahead. Pro Day happened on campus, right? And we know that there were 21 Longhorns who participated in, because not everybody, of course, gets invited to the combine. So the ones who, you know, didn't perform their best or still have more to show or were limited at the combine or for all the reasons, they can take advantage also of the Pro Day at campus. And what do you think the advantages of being in your home bubble, right? The advantages of being able to be in your home bubble.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge advantage. You're comfortable there. You've practiced there. Not only that, though, like I also want to point out the additional time to have that little bit of extra training, to have that little bit of extra work going in. To me, that is the biggest. That's the biggest factor. That's the biggest indicator of like, can they benefit from it? You know, we saw some guys, especially as we're talking about this, you know, you mentioned earlier talking about how the season is gruelingly long at this point with the playoffs and with conference championships and things. You know, football's being played well into January, and having that happen, that means that is a very short window. Taft was talking about this on Third and Longhorn, actually saying, look, you have essentially 5 days to decide, because other players have already said they're going to the NFL or not. Once you're done playing, once your season's over, you've got 5 days. Being able to come off the schedule of playing in these playoff games, high intensity, tons of energy, and then having to turn around and immediately participate in a pro day, right? And in the draft day. Look, I think that I can appreciate why some players opt out and say, you know what, I need just 3 more weeks. It's 3 more weeks of training time. It's 3 more weeks of rest to really get it together. So yeah, while it's beneficial for a lot of players, I can also see how the pro day, you know, on your home turf with that extra time makes a huge difference.
It's also a huge benefit to the future NFL combine participants who get to see, you know, get to shake hands with some of the NFL GMs and coaches. Like there were over 100 representatives from all 32 teams on campus yesterday. A huge turnaround from just a few years ago, right? So if we look at, this is from CJ Vogel, he posted the 21 players that were at the combine. We know most of them, I mean, at the pro day, most of them were invited to the combine. Not all of them were, like Cyrus Bolden or Bill Norton. There were Juan Davis. There were a few that could make an NFL roster and have the film and the talent to make it, but didn't get that cut because there's only, a few hundred that get invited to the combine out of thousands across the country, right? So looking at this list, who do you think really benefited from having a pro day who didn't get the opportunity at the NFL combine?
You said his name already. I think Bill Norton really had a good pro day. I think he showed out what he could do. Choosing to come to Texas to finish out his career at Texas. I think he developed even more. He was an integral piece to Texas, helped out quite a bit. But I think he made some strides. I think he really elevated his draft stock, and he put himself in front of some guys that might not have been as familiar with what he's done over the season. So I think that was really helpful for him. And I will say this too. I also think that Gunner, he suffered from those injuries at the combine that he didn't talk about, but you saw it afterwards, and man, it was brutal. Like, as somebody who rolls my ankles constantly, I've got the world's weakest ankles. Like, I can't even imagine, with as huge as his ankle got, that massive, sprain that he had, and then still running the 40 and posting a decent time at the combine, to be able to come back and be like, all right, so here's what was actually going on. We'll show this. He said he didn't want to make excuses, but I think it was a good opportunity for him to kind of pick up, heal, like I mentioned earlier, heal up a little bit and really put on paper what he can do.
All right. Since you mentioned it, I'll post it. The N. Rappaport had posted it for him. This was his ankle, bruised and swollen. There was like a crazy false start on the 40, the stop start, and it caused him to twist his ankle, and he ran anyway, didn't run the numbers he can run or that he was expected to run, but he didn't make excuses. He just ran it. And I like that Gunnar Helm mentioned, he was told, your film is your film. Yes, the combine numbers matter. There's a reason they have the combine. They matter, but you have, several years of growth and development and improvement and game making, game changing playability. And that matters too. So I'm glad he recognized that his film is still his film, and that he feels positive about what he was able to do. And to come back in this setting at the pro day and do even better was great. We saw Jaden Blue come back and run much better times. Turned out he had a groin injury as well that wasn't disclosed or that he didn't even know about. I think the players that really helped themselves a little bit, maybe Gavin Holmes got himself, raised some eyebrows as well. Gavin Holmes with the numbers he put up. And again, Silas Bolden, he was a huge impact on special teams for Texas, but he didn't get the invite to the combine like the other receivers on the Texas roster. But he was one of those super fast, put up a sub 440 time, and that's hard to come by. So those numbers alone hopefully will turn some eyes for him. What do you think about Isaiah Bond? He was asked, Corey Mose was amazing. Let's just put a side note. Corey Mose was on top of it, like for the last, he's always on top of it. But I don't know how, and there's only 24 hours a day, and he's at women's basketball. He's behind the scenes at the men's basketball. He's behind the scenes at baseball. He's everywhere, right? But he got this really great quote from Isaiah Bond about the number of players they expect to go into the draft this year. And this is what Isaiah Bond had to say about that, because there's a lot of potential. 21 at the pro day, the potential to maybe break the record. Let's see. And of course, it's slow, of course. Here we go.
Do you think there's any chance y'all break the record for amount of players drafted in 1 year?
100%. 100%. What is the record?
15. Georgia 2020.
Yeah, we're gonna have that. We're gonna have that.
Yeah, 100%. What is the record? He didn't even know what the record is, but he knew they were gonna break it. He has so much confidence in the talent on this team.
I love it. Yeah, look, I mean, he might not have known the numbers, but he's not wrong. Again, I mean, it's a lot of fun to watch Texas football right now, going from those draft droughts that we suffered through in the past decade to seeing now that these numbers just keep climbing. These players keep getting developed and they keep showing out with their numbers. It's impressive. It's just exciting to watch. And it's, I think we know, like, my first love is Texas football. Longhorns are my pro team. After that, of course, it's Lions and Texans for me personally. But man, I'm gonna have to start rooting for a lot of teams with all these Longhorns going in the NFL now. It's it's gonna be tough to go.
All right. CB says if Texas breaks the record, Texas would have the overall record of 17 players drafted in 1984 and then the modern record. Yeah, I don't, of the 21, it's hard to see 17 of them. There's some absolute talent that I think NFL teams will find the value even as an undrafted free agent. And of course, the goal is to get the opportunity to go compete for a spot and maybe and find their way onto an NFL roster. But getting drafted, oh man, what if you had to say now of the 21 eligible, how many do you think are actually going to go in drafted? I mean, I could see all of them finding a way on an even undrafted free agent, maybe 19 of the 21. But drafted, if you had to say today, Megan?
Top of my head, I don't think 15 is unreasonable. I think it's a lot. It's high. It's a lot. But I think there are some needs. Again, I mean, we talked about this. Part of the reason that we think that Quinn held over for this year, the needs in this year's draft are a lot different than last year's. And I think Texas has a lot to offer. And certainly in some areas where last year, if they had gone, there wasn't the need as much. It was a more competitive draft in certain areas. But again, I'm going to sit here and say this: we've got a lot of the O-line there. I wanted to point this out. Hayden Connor didn't run the 40 in the combine. He needed a little more time, wanted a little more time to work out there. Hayden put up a 5.18. 5'18" and
or a big guy move. That's
a big dude moving real fast. And he's taken. I can say this. I got permission to say this. I mean, he's taken meetings with the Texans, Jets, Cowboys, Bears, Saints, Patriots, Giants, and Commanders. So the demand is there. The demand is high, and so it's not just the flashy positions. So yeah, am I going to say it with my chest? I guess I have to.
Say that list again, Megan, because when people like Longhorn fans who have been following this team, when we think about, and we'll get into just in a minute about NFL projections of where they're going to be drafted. Most people say, you got Matthew Golden, Banks, Jade. I'm on record saying I think Jade is first off the board for Texas. You have those, and then you have Alfred Collins, who was in a boot but is considered will be healthy. You have all these other players. Quinn Ewers, where does he come in? Bond. When you get down the list, but then you have even players that maybe people aren't listing as, that's the top of the draft list, like Hayden Connor, who has proved to be very versatile, who has proved to be healthy and consistent on the field. Because the biggest ability is availability, right? Like he's consistently kept his body in mind to be prepared to play. Yep. Talk about like the teams that are even talking with Hayden Connor to show the interest in that development.
Just Hayden again. This is Texans, Jets, Cowboys, Bears, Saints, Patriots, Giants, and Commanders. And I did not mention this, but he's been he took a lot of snaps at center, actually.
He did yesterday.
So I love what you brought up. We talked about this at the beginning of the season, this past year. The buzzword around the preseason pressers and all that was versatility. You be able to play a lot of positions. Taft talked about it recently, again, in that interview, that he's played essentially every safety position. We talked about Jade, how we moved him around a lot. Having multiple players, having all of your guys be able to play. Of course, they have a specialty spot, but to be proficient and not just that, to be good at additional spots, to be able to move around where the need is. Mm-hmm. I think that to me is one of the more undervalued skills. It's one of the more undervalued things that when people are evaluating people and going, oh, where are these players going to end up? Like you mentioned, Rocky, having that versatility, having multiple reps at different places and being able to show that you can be a damn good player at multiple places, that just makes your stock rise. So I think that's something that Texas has done a really good job as we talk about player development, as we talk about what these guys are good at, where they excel, what they do. We're not just talking one kind of player in one kind of position, running one kind of play, right? Like this player development truly is deep. And I think that's really coming out, and we're going to see that come to fruition again, like I said, in this draft this year.
You're right. Sark mentioned that the versatility doesn't just help the individual player have more, value to their stock, but also the team. When a player rolls out there, they don't say, oh, they're about to run this or they're about to do this, because that's all that player can do. When a player like Jade goes out there, there's no telling how they're going to use him, or if he's coming down for a blitz, or if he's dropping in coverage, or if he's staying shallow. There's no way to know, because they can do it all. And when you have players that are versatile, it throws off the opponent so much, because they have a lot more to account for. And I love that you mentioned, Jade and his versatility, because we'll listen to him now about him talking about why that makes him so valuable in the draft. So here's Jade. He talked about that himself.
A lot of people in this draft class, I'm not knocking what they do. They do a lot of great things. I'm not knocking them, but I can do it all at every position. I can fit the run fit. I could play slot on the 2. I could blitz in the A gap. I could play outside on the line. I could be the middle runner. I could play post safety. I can play half safety. So I can do a lot of things, and I really take a lot of pride in that. A lot of film work in that, and a lot of execution and time and details that I did with Coach Joseph and how he developed me, just to be able to learn and diagnose plays and watch film. So
all right. Blitz in the A gap. I don't know if you saw him stand. Well, he was involved in a lot of drills too, but we're so lucky that this was on SEC Network for 3 hours yesterday afternoon. But I don't know if you saw him when he was off to the side, like when it wasn't his turn. But his legs, like, I know Jade is a strong physical man, but I hadn't really noticed his legs. No wonder he can blitz the A gap. Like, legs. Oh my.
Well, let me say this too. I mean, that's something that we've been hearing coming out. Behind the scenes, a lot of folks are saying these guys have bulked up. Again, we gave a shout out to Becton a little bit earlier, but having this time off, being able to rest and then just really work out. A lot of these guys are coming in bigger. They bulked up. They put on 15, 20 pounds, but it's lean. Right? They're still fast. They're still moving. They're doing good. So I think that's something. I think a lot of fans are going to be surprised at some of the physiques coming out in a good way, a good surprise, right? Like a happy surprise, not like they've been hitting the Cheetos or something. It's these guys have been working really hard in the off season. It's no days off, right? So I think that's something that, again, Texas, the resources that Texas has, the staff that Texas has, I think we're going to see that pay off. I wanted to say real quick, Mike D, you have got some awesome questions, some awesome basketball questions. Wanted to give a shout out. We appreciate you, man. We've got your questions marked. We've got basketball talk coming up in just a minute. We will address both of your questions, but wanted to say that real quick before we
Great questions. And we will absolutely address them when we talk basketball in just a bit. All the March Madness we will talk about. Wanted to share this picture of the O-line. Can you remember it's been a long time since Texas has had a round one, a first round offensive line pick, and even offensive line draft picks have been scarce for many years, right? And so now when you have, Jake Majors and Cam Williams and Hayden Connor and Banks, and then the development of a few players over the last few years under Coach Flood, when you have all of them coming through, what an opportunity to show not just recruits, but the NFL that you can trust. Of course, they know they can trust Coach Flood's development, but to see this growing number of 4, 5, 6 O-linemen in a draft, has been unheard of in Texas for a while.
Yeah, it's exciting times. I think this is, and again, you're seeing that camaraderie come out. A lot of the players returned. Byron Murphy was there to say hi. We saw Jay Witt come back. We saw AD there. Just this feeling, this culture has shifted, and how these players play for each other, how they love each other, how they get along. I think that, again, that's one of those things that just isn't valued as much. One thing I did want to touch on before we move off of Pro Day, but I think I really want to shout this out and credit our guys in this year's Pro Day. A lot of these NFL teams have been commenting on how our players are ranking on the character scale, right? They're graded on a whole bunch of different things, graded on physique, graded on speed, graded on, all the tangibles. But there's also the character tests and the character thing. And a lot of these guys, and it has been commented, a lot of these NFL teams are saying it is incredible how high a lot of our players are coming off on that character scale. And that matters. Character matters. So, again, this is a great group of guys. You see it in the locker room this year. You see them playing for each other. They love each other. So it's a lot of good things coming, I think. So to circle back to the question you asked me, Rocky, the more I hype myself up, the more I talk about it, I'm going to say 15 players go in the draft. I'm going to say it. F it. I'm going to say it with my chest, man. Let's just call it.
Oh, I'm more in the 12, 13 range because not that I don't believe there are all 21 couldn't find value. A team couldn't find value in them in the NFL. It's just really hard to do. And until Texas does it, it's hard to put your name on it. But if anyone can do it, it's this, especially when you add in the character element, right? Not that the NFL has been bad character is a caveat to being
it's always a deal breaker. Yeah.
No, it's not a deal breaker at all. However, it is value added when they know you will represent their organization and they can invest in you. All right, so let's quickly, we won't spend too much time on this, but let's quickly talk about kind of where after free agency, we saw all the swaps and the mixed match of the teams who were, trading players and all that happened. And then the combine happened. There was a little bit of shakeup in the projections. Still right now, it looks like a lot of people have the number 1 overall pick, who goes to my team, who happen to be the worst team in the NFL, the Tennessee Titans. Most project the Tennessee Titans to take Cam Ward. A couple people say the Titans trade out of the 1 pick, but most people say Cam Ward to Tennessee. I will be ecstatic if we get Cam Ward. However, let's not have to play a quarterback right away. All right, but let's look at the Longhorns. Matthew Golden, most people have Matthew Golden, Jahdae Barron, and Kelvin Banks in round 1. Going to all different teams, everyone projects differently, but a lot of people have being drafted overall. Cam Williams, Isaiah Bond, Andrew Makuba, Alfred Collins, Gunnar Helm, and that Quinn Ewers. Those are the ones that I'm seeing all in the first 3 rounds or so.
Sure.
After that, who knows?
Anybody's guess,
After
right?
that, it's anybody's guess who's getting drafted. But yeah, 15. Mike D's all in with you. 15. Let's go, Megan. Megan said it with her chest. There's going to be 15 picks.
I got a lot of chest. I'll say it with it, I guess. Here we go.
All right. Okay, so we got to share some info on our great friend Chuck, who's in the chat with us too, about his beautiful land. And I have to say, my oldest stepdaughter is having a baby, and she's hosting a big weekend long baby shower weekend, with friends and family coming in. And she's like, I want to do it where we can all stay together. I know a place, and
You have the
she
place.
booked it because we put our money where our mouth is, and we booked Chuck's Diamond S Rockin' Ranch. Diamond Rockin' S Ranch.
You do this
Megan,
every time, girl. How about I handle this part?
Yeah,
Right,
you take it from here, Megan.
All right. So, as Rocky eloquently tried to say, if you were looking for a wonderful hill country getaway, look no farther than the Rockin' Diamond S Ranch. It is seated on 120 acres in the beautiful hill country near Johnson City, out in Blanco. And it's just a quick drive to Austin or San Antonio. The property sleeps 14 with 1 primary house, 2 fully furnished cabins, and there is so much to do, y'all. There's wildlife watching, fishing. You can play with the Longhorns. Go meet the new baby. Go say hi to Colt. There's indoor and outdoor eating and cooking. And like I mentioned, it's just 5 minutes from downtown Blanco. There's breweries, eateries, shopping, and more. So you will never be at a loss for things to do. Don't forget, F1 is in town. It's coming, y'all. There is a lot of baseball to be played. The Georgia team is coming in town. A&M's going to be here. So if you're looking for a fun getaway, again, look no farther than the Rockin' Diamond S Ranch. That is RockinDiamondSRanch.com, or give our good friend Chuck a call at 512-694-1969.
All right. Good job, Megan. Yes. Yeah. Go check it out. It's beautiful. It's beautiful out there. She's amazing too. Is that Karis? I think you're talking about? Okay. Yeah, she is amazing. All right. Anyway, so moving on. We have so much to talk about. Next, we have to cover March Madness, and that includes Texas men's basketball being eliminated from a play-in game against Xavier, but that's okay. They played their way in, and we stole their coach. So we'll talk about our beloved Rodney Terry, who we all wished had succeeded, but the standard is the standard, and the standard was not met. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the women's basketball in the Sweet 16, major accomplishments, and a lot of side notes about that. And then there are some other just general March Madness notes that we have to talk about. So let's start with Rodney Terry, and how that all went down. So we know they struggled at the end of the season. They couldn't even beat a winless South Carolina team, and they had moments in the SEC championship tournament, even eliminating the Aggies in that tournament, but they fell short and found their way to just a play-in spot and got eliminated by Xavier, even they were up by double digits at one point. And the writing was on the wall. We talked about this. The writing has been on the wall for a minute that it was going to take a lot to save his job, and it didn't happen, even with one of the best players in the country.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, like you said, the standard is the standard. And I think the most frustrating part about this men's basketball team has been Rodney Terry knows how to recruit. He knows how to get guys on campus. He knows how to get them there. It just, they weren't playing well together. I've mentioned this before. I don't think this is any shock to anybody. It just felt like at times you're watching this Texas team when they were clicking. Man, they were a great team. We saw them, come from behind to beat A&M during the regular season, to take them out in the SEC tournament. We watched some, these guys could get up big on teams, and then it just wasn't there. It looked like 5 individuals playing individual ball out there. That team vibe just never really jived this year. So like you mentioned, Rocky, the writing was on the wall, and we've all got nothing but love for Rodney Terry and what he said. And, we don't need to read the whole thing, but I do want you to point out his goodbye letter, his farewell letter to Texas. I thought it was classy as always.
Yeah, we won't read the whole thing, but it just, they worked to try to win a championship. That was the goal. That's the standard at Texas, to try, to aim for championships. It was an honor to be the head coach at Texas, and just, thanked the players and coaches and everyone who helped him along the way. And he's always been classy, always been kind, always been available to talk to people. It seemed like everyone who worked with him really loved him and appreciated him. But that era, unfortunately, did not work out. And CDC, like we talked about earlier, had that spare tire in case he got a flat. And, like every good athletic director does, they have their short list of who's available, and agents are always contacting behind the scenes of, looks like y'all might be needing a coach soon. And in comes Sean Miller. Well, side note, we've already had transfer portal out of Texas news of Devin Pryor, who's already put his name in the transfer portal. But coming in is Sean Miller. So Sean Miller, we know from Arizona. See, this is the thing, Megan.
Let me put this up here real quick. Mike D, like I said, we would get to your question. And Rocky, I have a feeling you're about to answer this. So what grade would you give the hiring of Sean Miller? And what do we think of his press conference? So Rocky, I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, so my immediate reaction, I gave it an M for meh. And I was messaging with Kevin Dunn about this, Katie, like, Okay, my initial response was he was caught up in the FBI thing. It bothered me that one of the first comments CDC had to make in this press conference was, we did investigated and there were no NCAA, he called it NC2A, no NC2A record of this and that. I'm like, are we really getting into the semantics about the gray, like, do we really have to play with words about whether or not he had to leave Arizona to go back to Xavier?
He got let go from Arizona because of this questionable.
If there's enough to fire you from the school that you're winning at,
look, I think it was
that bothers me.
I get it. And no, I appreciate that. What I would offer, and again, I'm not going to make excuses. I appreciate your meh reaction, but I will say this. I think a lot of people had a meh reaction to the Sark hire too, right? And
I did with that. I'll be honest. I did, and I said it on this, like, 500 coach, a 500 coach. Yeah.
So I appreciate the trepidation about a coach that has been under investigation from the FBI. Like, that sounds terrible, right? What I will offer is this was a different era when he was in trouble, and this was about impermissible payments. And because it crossed lines, the FBI, state lines, I guess, the FBI got involved. We're not in that era anymore. It's not illegal to pay.
We're still in the era where there's rules, though.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. But again, what I will say is I think there were a lot of things that were petty as shit back in the day. I didn't always agree with it. You're right, Rocky. You break the rules, you're still breaking the rules. But the other thing that I will say about Texas is they are on lockdown with coaches have to answer for everything. Texas is really a stickler about playing by the rules, about staying above ground, about doing all those things.
Oh,
Is Texas perfect? No, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Texas has never done anything wrong and they're, perfect with everything. But on the whole, especially for a program with as much money as they have and as much success as they've had and an athletic department as big as it is, Texas keeps their nose clean. They do.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the hesitancy there. I understand it. I had that kind of knee-jerk reaction to it first, like, well, geez, do we really want to coach? Like, isn't there anybody else that doesn't have this kind of baggage? But when I started digging into it more, again, I think Arizona had to make that call to give the impression that they were keeping everything above water and they wanted to keep their program clean. But number one, the stuff that he was under investigation for wouldn't be a blip on the radar in today's NIL era. So I get it. You got to follow the rules and you got to follow the rules that you're given.
Yeah.
But I think Texas administration is going to be a really good backdrop for that. And I would offer that the only trouble that he ever got into, and nothing to the point, he wasn't proven, right? The only trouble he ever got into wouldn't get him in trouble today. So I'll say that. I'll offer that.
But did he break the rules to the point that he was investigated by the FBI? Did he have to leave a top program, even though you know how bad it is for somebody like Arizona to say, who is finally winning something in anything, just say you got to go? To me, that's always going to be a cloud over, and I hope that means there is
a question.
Massive due diligence of double checking every phone call he makes, and I just don't want to live like that.
I don't think it's a concern now. I honestly don't. I hope
he's learned his lesson.
I also think it's worth. Well, hold on. I also think it's worth pointing out he wasn't the one that was being accused of doing wrong. The question was, did he know? Yeah, but did he know about the wrongdoing? Is it a gray area? Yes, but there is a difference between committing the act and knowing about the act.
Then you get into, shouldn't you know everything that's happening in your program? I don't know. I hope he's learned his lessons, and I hope he didn't bring that to Texas. Any drama with that stuff, I hope it doesn't come. And I'm going to be honest, like, we're here to be honest. I didn't want people who were in this FBI drama bringing that drama here. And when CDC has to start a press conference with, we researched and he wasn't specifically named by the. Come on.
That's fair.
Look, I'm going to call it. I didn't like it. I get it. But
that's fair.
I heard him talk, and I gave him an opportunity to talk, and so we're going to give him an opportunity to explain what he plans to bring to Texas, and that I loved. I loved his press conference, and I know somebody who was it that mentioned, like, let's talk about that press conference. Let's talk about it, and we have it queued up too to share some really good clips. I love that he was, appreciative of Xavier, and he thanked, his former school. They're salty AF, and they're mad that he left, which means he must be a really good coach. Because anytime they're really salty, they're mad he left. He mentioned right away. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying you're not wrong. I'll ask that question too, and I'll pose this, Rocky. While you finish your thought, I'll pose this to our
Yeah.
listeners and our viewers. Who do you think was the most salty when CDC Badger took what he wanted? When CDC Badger don't give a shit. CDC Badger just takes what he wants. He took
yeah.
Coach Beard, he took Schloss, and now he's taken Miller. I'm curious
It's
what
so
fan base
hard
was the
because
most pissed?
I first thought salty was the wretched women of Houston when Tom Herman left them. There were some nasty women, and there was even one woman who we knew was the Houston Cougar woman who was salty.
A Cougar on all levels, right?
Coach there leave her for the flagship University of Texas. I thought
Sure.
that was salty. And then I thought the Texas Tech fans, when Beard left them, was salty. They were like our basketball players were literally in physical danger that police were called to protect them because their fans are so awful.
To get the bus in. Yeah.
Yeah. And which to me is probably the most salty, because other than like social media of Schloss leaving A&M, like that's just Twitter, blah, 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 crying on Twitter. But to go and physically attack buses and put people in physical danger, I think I would have to say the award goes to the Texas Tech basketball fans.
So I will say this. Look, our good friend Nash posed that question on Twitter. It was a great question. And what I responded to there was, I think I have an answer, but I reserve the right to answer that until after Texas A&M comes and plays baseball in Austin, which we don't have to wait long for that. End of April, we'll see that series come to Austin. I think I agree with you on the surface. When it gets physical, when you are physically attacking people and the cops literally have to be called in to physically protect people, that's too much. Calm down. That takes it above and beyond. But I can't say that hasn't happened yet. I will say this. I mean, A&M fans doxed Coach Schloss and his family. And that's not okay either. Right.
No.
So I think, in my opinion, I think the Texas Tech fans are probably in the running for being the most salty about things, but I reserve the right to change my answer after the baseball series in Austin for sure.
Oh, it's going to be ugly. I like that people mentioned, like, Bill Self was named as a, is he an option to come to Texas? Remember, he was also in that same FBI deal. He just got swept under the rug, and he's a winning coach, so people don't worry about him. Anyway, so let's talk about the press, back to the press conference. There's so much great stuff. He talked about the Director's Cup, which I thought was pretty fascinating, how much he respected the success of the entire university, the program that Texas has winning football and volleyball, and he was excited to meet the other, Coach Schaefer of the women's basketball. He talked about that. He talked about recruiting, the bringing back the former players, and that he wants to recruit internationally, because we know Texas is an international brand. The potential is there. We know he historically at Arizona and Xavier has had international players contribute to their success. I like that he made that little comment about, well, Xavier, we didn't have any, McDonald's All-Americans. We just developed players, right? So let's play this for you, Megan, because this is where he talked about this is where I really was intrigued. He talked about the 4 key things that are going to be like the cornerstone of his program. The vision of his program includes these 4 things. And we'll just listen to a little bit. We won't play it all, but we'll listen to a little bit of it. And then we'll talk about the four key things. Here we go. Let me hit share. And then I'll hit sound. If I could move it.
All we need is a producer. I'm just saying.
The lifeblood of what they do are the decisions they make, that who inevitably becomes their roster. It's going to be a combination of the transfer portal, recruiting the very best high school players, having a great feel for international recruiting. And again, what starts here changes the world. That's the state of Texas. Again, when you look at the talent in cities, just Dallas and Houston, it's never been more plentiful. When you're who we are, it's going to begin there. Player development. That's one.
Okay, so he talked about one, recruiting. He's like, you have to get the best from the transfer portal, high school, international, and then Texas, the state of Texas. And he mentioned this is the flagship university of the state of Texas, right? He needs to get the best players from Texas. He mentioned player development, and this is where he talked about they have a history of developing players, him and his staff. And that's what he talked about the McDonald. He didn't have no All-Americans, but what did they do? They developed. And this was intriguing, Megan, because a lot of people, and when we get to the women's basketball, we'll discuss this and why maybe Texas missed out on a number one recruit in the country this week. Style of play.
Yeah.
You know, historically, Texas has been not the most high scoring, more defensive minded. When you have Rick Barnes, and then, you know, through the years, Chris Beard had offensive style, but there was still that tough defensive mentality.
Yeah.
Rodney Terry focused on defense. Now he's talking about switching that up to make it more, he said, exciting, up tempo, fast and smart, pace and movement, but with toughness. Do you think that's the trajectory right now of college basketball, that high pace tempo? Is that what Texas fans are going to want to see in the Moody Center?
Look, I will answer it this way. I think at the end of the day, Texas fans won't care as long as we're winning and we make it beyond the first round.
They don't want to see a 45
out. I don't know. I think as long as
unless
we're winning,
it's Texas OU.
Exactly. Look, as long as we're winning at the end of the day, I don't think it matters.
Okay.
But I will say basketball tends to be that more, you want that high pace, that exciting heart beating, right? You want to be on the edge of your seat, the back and forth. I think Texas fans would like it. Sure, everybody likes to get hyped. Everybody likes to get excited. Everybody likes to see the windmill slam dunks and the alley-oops and the crazy, like, let's just score, let's go crazy with it. But again, at the end of the day, I think every fan, Mike, I agree with you, man. Like, I think every fan will say yes, but I don't think anybody's going to be mad as long as the team is winning. I don't think anybody's going to give a shit. I think as long as Texas goes and is competing for conference championships, is making tourney runs, is making national championship runs, nobody's going to care if they're winning in the 60s, right? It doesn't have to be 110 every game.
But they still want an exciting product, because he talked about not just excellence, but also excitement and excellence. Yeah. Like, it still has to be a product people want to see. It's one thing to check and say, oh, we won last night. Good. It's another to be like, I can't wait to get to the game, to Moody Center tonight, and help contribute to that home court advantage.
Yeah,
right?
Look, I don't disagree with that, but I will offer this. Look at the women's team. The women's team is a defensive-minded, defense first, and that is some fun basketball to watch. If you cannot tell me the Moody isn't hype. You can't tell me that's not fun to be there and experience it, watch them shut people down and steal, and right. Mm-hmm. Like,
the blocks are always fun too.
Yeah, like I'll take that, thank yous, right? Like the offensive rebounds, the defensive rebounds. Again, Texas women are a defensive minded team, and they're fun as hell to watch. So I do appreciate it. I think a lot of people immediately go to high scoring is a lot of fun. Oh, crazy offenses are a lot of fun. I'm not saying they're not, but I don't think it, at the end of the day, you can, as long as you have an exciting brand of basketball, you can still be defensive minded and be an exciting brand where people are hyped up and the team's playing well together, and you've got some crazy plays. I think that's still possible.
All right. So his four factors for his vision of the program: recruiting, player development, style of play, and then culture. We know that word culture and he referenced a lot about SARC and football and being a fan of SEC football and all those things. But he talked about his all-in culture, and his ex-Xavier fans were quick to call him out, like, so much for all in, because he left them, whatever. Anyway, but he said communication, respect, unity, passion, and joy. He wanted a big home court advantage. He even mentioned the corral. We know the student section where they get all riled up and get there early for their seats, the corral. He talked about really, because he's one of the coach who's been to the most Elite Eights without getting to a Final Four, and how close he's become, and then how long it's been since Texas has been to a Final Four. He talked about, like, time has come for those two to come together and how hungry he is CDC called him a hungry dog for this, but let's listen to him talk about this moment.
It has, I know certainly from my perspective, hungry to get there. And I'll also tell you, I know this place is hungry to get back there and compete and win a national championship. But I think when you look at the 20-year period of time, for me, I'll point you to an 8-year window. And it didn't just happen at one place. In an 8-year window, we went to 4 Elite Eights. And when you look at the 4 Elite Eights, 6 of those 8 years, we went to 2 other Sweet 16s. So I think when you're in that cycle and you can keep getting to that second round, inevitably it will happen, whether that's talking about Texas basketball or a coach himself.
Megan, do you think which would you rather have? A coach that's been right on the edge and can't get there, hasn't gotten there? Not that they can't, hasn't gotten there for whatever reason. You can go back and look at the games. Was there a crazy ref call that swayed something one way or the other, or whatever? They just kept getting close and didn't cross the finish line. Or a coach like Bill Self that was mentioned earlier, who's been there, done that, and knows the recipe. Which would you rather have in this moment for Texas?
The way you phrased it, I think, is a little tricky. What I would offer is, with where Texas athletics is right now, I don't want old and washed up. I don't want past their prime. I am 100% good with a coach that has shown so much potential, and now, given the resources at Texas, can take that to the next level. Again, I'll offer, we've seen this with Sark. He's gone through his whole redemption arc, right? He was close. Then he fell way low and was building his way back. He gets to Texas, and all of this, hell, that first season was 5-7. A lot of question about what he could do. Oh, Texas hired this subpar coach, blah, blah, blah. But given that, trusting the process, understanding the culture, having that plan, given the resources that Texas has, and look at where Texas is now. We've been knocking on the door of a national championship. We were arguably, 1 play away from a national championship this year, playing for a national championship. So to answer the question, I'm going to phrase it a little differently, but with where Texas is right now, I would much prefer a coach that has shown so much potential and has the ability, knows what it takes to get teams there, and has done more with less.
He did mention that, yeah.
I can appreciate a coach that's done more with less, because now at Texas, you'll be able to do more with more. And so
I like that, Megan.
Yeah, so I get the hesitation. I understand the concern. It doesn't feel like a big splashy hire. But at this point, I've kind of learned to stop questioning CDC, right? And CDC we trust, and trust the process. I have a feeling I know your thoughts on it, but I'd love to hear them. What are your thoughts?
I hope it works out. I can see the pros and cons on both sides. Someone that's really hungry, he mentioned hungry, CDC mentioned hungry. Somebody that's really hungry, Sark has talked about, being that close fuels you even more. It's what makes you, Stark uses the word obsessed. He's become obsessed with being that close and almost tasting it, and having, being that close and not being able to secure it. There's something to be said about that. And then there's also something to be said about being that close all the time and not getting over the hump. Why?
Again,
if there's ever a time, I hope it comes together for him at Texas. I hope now that he has, maybe it's that one extra thing of, like you mentioned, now he can get the McDonald's All-American, that one player that could, because if he had a Trey Johnson this year at Xavier, what could he have done? Right. He mentioned himself, he's done, it's kind of rude to call your own players less, but he said he's done, more with less. Can you imagine what he could do with the NIL resources, the prestige, the international brand, especially with someone like we mentioned earlier that seeks out international talent? He could bring them to Texas as an internet. We've talked about this in the show many times before, how recognizable and respected the Longhorn logo is around the world, right? So if he could use that and bring that to, find key talent around the world. And build, not just accumulate talent, but build a team. It seems like he's had a history of being able to do that. And he talked about being more excited for this job than anything in his life, because I think he can tell that maybe his missing pieces could be here.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And look, I don't think it's a bad thing to point out. Keep in mind, during that town hall, CDC talked about Texas is getting more scholarships now for basketball. Texas is invested in NIL. Texas One Fund I've heard behind the scenes that NIL for basketball is not going to be a problem. Donors are hungry. Donors are ready. They're ready to pitch in. There's been a lot of money making, a lot of deals going on behind the scenes. So is it a good time for him to get here? Again, we all wanted Rodney Terry to exceed and excel. We did. Wonderful man who will always be a lifetime Longhorn. Love the program. But at the end of the day, if you don't get it done in a program like Texas, you're not going to stick around for very long. And I think, I like what he's saying. Could some of it be coach speak? Sure. But to me, Chris Beard was a great hire. He was the right hire, and he had Texas on track. Where would we be now if he had kept his hands to himself, right? Texas basketball could be in a very different place.
Yeah.
So I trust the hire by CDC. I trust his evaluation process. And again, let's be clear, guys. Like, this isn't something that happened. He didn't make this decision on a whim. He didn't throw up,
It's been in the works. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't flip a coin. I mean, you can bet that Bill Self was vetted. You can bet that Sean Miller was vetted. That there were a lot of names floating around there, and probably more than 5 or 6 conversations have been had. So, yeah, I get it. Again, I understand the man, what have you done to prove it that you deserve to be at Texas? But to me, again, I think doing that more with less, and also being in an era where NIL is going to be available. The facilities are available, right? If Rodney Terry could recruit his ass off at Texas, and he did, can you imagine what a coach who can prove that he knows what it takes to get to those higher levels and has done so with less talent? I think we're on the edge of the ability to go, oh man, Texas basketball might be. We've been talking about it for so long, and I don't want to jinx anything here, but holy crap, are we in an era where are we hearkening back to the 2005 days where the big three, where football, baseball, and basketball might all be good at once? I don't know.
Let's see who his roster is even going to be right now. We know half the team, just like every year for basketball, there's men's basketball more, but the huge turnover every year, transfers in and out. Is he bringing players? He was asked if he's bringing players from Xavier with him. Of course, he can't mention that. He talked about his staff being, some key people from Xavier he would, that are close to him, but he also really wants to embrace some Texas people that know the Texas scene and are familiar with the Longhorn program. So he's very much embracing, the people who are in the know in Austin already. So we have to see who's the staff, what's the roster going to be, who's he going to pull in, what high school commits are going to stick with Texas. There's so much that's going to happen over the next few months to figure out. Should people get really, really excited right away? It could be a process. Things take time. Even the people that questioned Sark that first year was 5 and 7, but things got turned around and we're on the right projected. They turned around in the right direction. So we'll see. Basketball is one of those sports that can be turned around quickly. Look at Arkansas. Look at there's lots of teams that turn around quickly, right? Okay, so speaking of, let's move on to women's basketball because we want to make sure we celebrate the women. They are, first, a really cool note, Megan, 17-0 at the Moody Center this year, undefeated at home. How cool is that?
Absolutely awesome. And I want to point out some stats that our friend Danny Davis mentioned here on Twitter.
Okay.
This is the first time since the 2003-2004 season that Texas has gone undefeated at home. The 17 wins tie UT's 1982 and 83 squad for its most home wins without a loss. And this is all coming in a difficult basketball conference. Texas beat 5 ranked teams, including South Carolina, LSU, Alabama, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt, and an additional 4 NCAA tournament qualifiers at home. That's,
Wow.
listen, that's impressive. I don't care who you are. That's impressive. Texas feels like the real deal. You know, we talked about this with Sean Miller and the hire. Let me speak in similar terms with Coach Vic Schaefer. He did a lot of good things at Mississippi State. We know he loves Mississippi State. He's happy to say it. But when Texas calls, you don't turn that call down. You take the call. And for the most part, you take the job, right? Like, there are a few people that would turn this job down. Coach Schaefer has done great things with the women's program. Again, this is not to knock Karen Aston. I loved what she did. I think she took over the program and she built a solid foundation. But to your point, she wasn't crossing that line. She wasn't doing enough at a program like Texas where the expectation is. So when Coach Schaefer came in, he built the team the way that he wanted to. And I think something that's important, both with the hire of Sean Miller, we saw it with Sark. I'm going to offer this, we saw this with Coach Schaefer. When these guys are coming in and they're saying, hey, pay attention to what they're saying. Pay attention to how they're talking about building their program, how they're talking about, like, culture matters. We talked, God, that was the overlying theme for football last year, right? The culture is shifting.
Yeah.
You see it with the women's basketball team. You see how this team plays well together. They love each other. They play as a team. When your star isn't doing so well, if Maddie Booker's having a tough day, you've got 5 other girls that are stepping up, right? Shay Holly's been a rock star. Taylor Jones doesn't get a lot of love nationally. She's starting to, but she's been, are you kidding me? She's one of the best posts that's out there. But again, the stark difference between how the men were in the locker room and how the women are in the locker room, it's that culture. And I think if what we're hearing from Sean Miller and what we have seen from Coach Schaefer, if Miller can be what he's talking about with culture and emulate what Coach Sarkisian has done, what Vic Schaefer has done, and really build that culture, I think men's basketball can be important. So again, the women are absolutely killing it. It's all about culture. It's all about playing together as a team and exceeding and succeeding as a team. And like I said earlier, man, this is a fun team to watch.
It is exciting. So we know on Saturday, round 1 of the NCAA tournament, they defeated William and Mary, who played in the, a couple days before. They beat them by 40-something points, 44 points. Monday, they had a little bit closer game against Illinois. They only won by 17 points against Illinois. But that puts them against Tennessee in the Sweet 16. That puts them in the Sweet 16. Congratulations, women. That's a little accomplishment. It's still a huge feat to be into the Sweet 16. That puts them against Tennessee. We know this battle, Texas men got eliminated by the men's Tennessee in the SEC championship game. But this Saturday, March 29th, 2:30 p.m. Central Time, they will be in Birmingham, in the Birmingham region. And it's about 250-ish miles from Knoxville and over 750 miles from Texas. So probably will favor a few more Tennessee fans in the arena, but Texas, hopefully they can embrace the hate on the road. It was a true road game practically when they played the South Carolina big SEC tournament, not Big 12, SEC tournament. So hopefully some Texas fans go and support. This is a huge opportunity as the 1 seed to take on number 20 Tennessee, ranked number 20 in the country. The big question, go ahead, Megan.
Oh, no, I just want to make sure we get to Mike's question that he asked a little bit earlier, but go ahead, Rocky.
That's what I was about to get to about Aaliyah Chavez.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I know this is Mike D's question and we'll get to it just now. I know Chavez went to OU for the money. Do you think Chavez did not want to share the spotlight with Madison Booker too, because she wanted to be the star? What are your thoughts, Megan? I'll let you go first on that.
While I wouldn't phrase it that way, I think that Chavez, and let's not get this wrong, she's a generational player. She's incredible. She's going to do really, really great things for OU. No question. But I think the more you look at it, like there were several teams that had backed off a little bit towards the end of her recruitment because
LSU,
of
South
because of
Carolina.
the deals, yeah, that she was asking for. Is she going to get them? Is OU promising them? Will they deliver? Probably. Little shade there, probably. She's and she is worth it. She is like I said, she's a generational talent. I do think that it definitely plays in. I just finished going on my huge rant about how the women's basketball team plays for each other. When one person isn't having the best day, the rest of the team steps up. That's not by mistake. That's by design. That is how Vic Schaefer builds his teams. It is truly about team. It's truly about passing it around. Do stars emerge? Yeah. Roy Harmon, incredible player. Madison Booker, are you freaking kidding me? Incredible player. But it's still about team. It's still about this in how Schaefer builds his teams. I do think conflicts with Chavez's style a little bit. She wants to be the number one. She wants to have the ball all the time. And again, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But I do think that OU was more willing to adjust their style to fit her play, where Texas is more about let's find the right players to fit in our system. So it's a great get for Oklahoma. I'm not going to say that it's not. I'm not going to pretend that it's not. She's going to be a great player. But again, there's a lot of expectations on her shoulders. And when you want to be the star and you want to be the number one, and it's more about you than team, then you got some heavy expectations to live up to. It's a lot of weight on one person's shoulders. So, Mike, yeah, I will agree with you. I do think it was more about style. I think OU was more willing to capitulate to what she wanted versus Texas saying, look, we would love to have you here, but this is the style that we play, and we want you to fit into that style. Rocky, what are your thoughts on it?
If she says it's the style of play, why she chose OU, then there's no reason to say otherwise. The thing is, just because she shoots the most and has the ball in her hand the most, to me, doesn't necessarily assume that, oh, she must be a ball hog and she must only want the offense to go through her. Sometimes when you're just the most outstanding, fantastic player in a generation or a decade or that your town has ever seen, the ball will go through your hands all the time.
It should go through your hands.
Yeah, it should, yes. And when she gets to college at level, and she's going to have massive defenders bigger than she's seen in Lubbock, and she's going to go up against, in the SEC, she's playing at OU, she's going to go up against big physical athletes that she may not see on a regular basis. That's going to change her game. So to think anyone, and if she does, fantastic, best of luck to her. If she does come to college ball and puts up 30, 40, 50 points a game, superstar status, right? More power to her. But I think there's going to be adjustment. But if she found, like she says, her home, she says her family, if she found that community and welcoming, if she felt most part of a future team, home, family in at OU, then I mean, good for her, and wish her the best. And they got a good one. I'm not going to say, we've been talking about this for weeks, that she's coming, her announcement's coming soon. Texas, it's a big get. And I'm not going to pretend that all of a sudden, like, oh, she was a ball hog anyway.
Didn't want her anyway. Yeah, no, I agree.
We're going to be honest. We would have loved her to pick Texas. But if she doesn't, then you just celebrate the players, the fantastic, elite, top, recruiting classes that do choose Texas. That's all you can do.
CB, I love this. We got Aaliyah Crump. We're good without Chavez. Look, I love that attitude. That's a great attitude to take. You love the players that come to Texas. And again, I want to reiterate, Coach Schaefer's style, his whole style is predicated on teamwork and team and working well together, moving the ball around, right? Like, so it sucks. Like Rocky said, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like she's not a great talent, but Texas will be just fine. It's not the end of the world. Like I'm excited for where Texas is moving and how they're going to play out. Again, we've got them Sweet 16. All right, Rocky, let me ask you this. Do you fill out brackets Do you fill out brackets for March Madness?
No, we kind of mentioned this last week. No, mine would have been busted the first play-in because I thought Texas would have beat Xavier. So, no.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm doing okay in my men's bracket.
You
Women's
are?
bracket. Yeah, I'm in the top
Okay,
like
good.
85th percentile, which I feel like is
What? Good
pretty
job. Did you
decent.
pick Texas to lose? Is that why?
I did. Sorry. Sorry, guys.
What?
And I will say for my women, I couldn't choose Oklahoma. That was my I probably should have, but whatever. But I do have Texas winning it all in my women's bracket. I combine the heart and the head, but I do think it's
Okay.
reasonable that Texas makes it all the way through. Again, one game at a time.
I
But
think Texas has as good a shot as any. And unfortunately, we have to mention this when we talk about the craziness of the women's March Madness bracket. We have to mention this terrible news. Juju Watkins, one of the superstars of college basketball, right? Women's college basketball. I love that she's involved in like so much media and advertising and marketing for all kind of products now, like really taking advantage of NIL. But we saw her drop to the ground on Monday night in a non-contact injury. Immediately, the whole world looks at that and says ACL. Well, here it's being posted by Bleacher Report that she had torn her ACL, and that's devastating for her, being in the biggest moment of the year, but also just in general, that she was on the ground in pain. Like, just don't wish that on anyone, especially someone who's just a shining superstar of the sport right now. I mean, anyone, but also, unfortunately, but USC went on to win that game by like 30 or 40 points, but still, like, that will impact them as the competition gets tougher, not having your superstar.
Yeah, that is very true. Mike, you had a good question. We actually had this marked to talk about a little bit later in the show, but since we talked about the Chavez commitment, I do want to bring it up. Did people not clap for her, and did she tell them to clap? Yeah, look,
what?
So we've got this video clip, Rocky. It's down at the bottom of our notes.
Okay.
I've added it there. I don't know if you can see it kind of halfway through the last section of our notes, but from what I saw, now Miracle Martinez, hey girl, it was great to meet you this weekend, by the way, said that it was delayed due to internet speed. It appeared that way, yet it was a connectivity issue. I don't know that I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Let's see. Here
watch it. Let's watch it and talk about it.
Okay. I hadn't seen that, so I'm glad you found it. Here,
And I'm ready. And I'm ready to give my all to make this my home and bring a national championship to the city of Norman.
She says nobody clapped. That was not a delay in audio. That was her freaking out that nobody clapped.
That's what I would offer. I appreciate the delay in audio, but the people standing right behind her could hear her without the microphone. Her family didn't look excited about it. I mean, I don't know. Draw whatever conclusions you want.
She literally says nobody clapped.
Yeah, she was the one saying Norman, and everybody directly behind her was like, "Oh, okay." Which, I mean, to be fair, is probably my reaction anytime I hear somebody say they want to go to Norman. What?
I'd be like, nobody.
You sure about that?
Oh, poor thing. That's her biggest moment. And ESPN covered her announcement. That's how big of a national announcement it was. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Her commitment. Many top programs were all fighting for her. Good for her. I hope she finds her home. I also hope Texas holds her to 0 points every time they play.
Absolutely.
Because that's what we need. All right. We can get into later. I did watch OU play this weekend in the round of 32, and they balled out. They have an exciting style of play. Not going to pretend they don't, but until they beat Texas, I don't really want to hear about it. All right. Anyway, so also in March Madness, Aggies eliminated. LOL. All right, moving on. We got to talk big happenings this weekend with Texas baseball and Texas softball. We definitely don't want to rush through Texas baseball because it was a huge win. So let's talk about it. Megan, after taking that L on Friday night, they lost 2-8, which was it was a brutal home loss. It felt like one of those, oh no, here we go again.
Let's call it what it is. It was an ass kicking. It was an ass kicking.
It was, and it felt worse than the score. And then LSU is posting that video of them dancing at our field with their big boom box and saying Tigers own Texas. And then what happened, Megan?
Oh, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I'd like to be a little swaggy right now. I'd like to,
please.
Again, I've been saying things with my chest all night, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Uh-oh.
I called Texas
You did.
winning this series 2 of 3. I called Texas winning the series 2 of 3. And sure enough,
you did.
Texas baseball came through, took the series against LSU, winning it 2-3. Listen, this is something that we've talked about this season. I am so excited. We've had this culture discussion for football. We've had it now for men's and women's basketball. I'm going to carry the culture discussion on to baseball now. Watching this team and how they have reacted. While there are many of the same players, the vibes, man, the vibes are different with this team. We've been talking about it all season, how they're reacting in the dugout, how this team is coming together. And look, while nobody wants to lose that first game, losing a Friday night game is tough. How Texas responded. They got punched in the mouth Friday night. How this team responded and came back and absolutely dominated LSU. And let's be super, super clear here. LSU has a roster full of MLB talent. Zero question. LSU is going to put some guys in the show. There's no question there. But Texas came through. They got popped in the mouth on Friday, came through and absolutely dominated. This Texas team, good defense, and the bats are figuring it out. This was a really exciting series. If you guys were there, it was, let me tell you, the dish was hopping. The atmosphere was great. The tailgates were thumping. There were a ton of people there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The food was awesome. Shout out to Left Field, as always, for putting on a great party. I actually met some LSU fans in front of us on on Saturday, and told them, you know what? Come to the tailgate Sunday. Come hang out, have a good time. They were super cool. I showed them Left Field. They came to my tailgate too. Fed them at Left Field. They had gumbo from Left Field, and these Cajuns were going, all right, man, this is pretty damn good. This is good gumbo. So Texas puts on a good party. Don't count us out. But yeah, listen, the dish was absolutely hopping. It was loud. It was proud. The fans were excited. There were a lot of LSU fans there too. Let's be super clear. Their fans travel. So the atmosphere was just bonkers. And the way that this team responded, again, Rocky, like you mentioned, that Friday night loss, 2-8. It's pretty good butt whooping.
It felt like 2-20. You know, it felt like Texas wasn't in the same competition level as LSU that Friday night. It just felt like they were outmatched in every way. And it felt like,
LSU
oh no,
came ready.
This is going to be a long weekend. And all Texas did was respond.
I didn't have that feeling that it was going to be a long weekend, but again, we all know I tend to wear those burnt orange sunglasses a little bit more than some other folks. But Texas responded in a big way. Saturday win, 11-7. It was absolutely incredible. I will say this: if you guys are watching this team, Will Gasparino has been covering that center field like it is nobody's business. This kid, I'm sure he hates this. I'm still going to say it. He's listed at 6'6". Let's be very honest. Like, I've had some conversations with his family. The kid isn't 6'6". He's closer to 6'8". He's a big kid. So will Giraffe Sparino, perhaps? I don't know. I'm sure he'd hate that, but I'm putting it out there. He's a big kid that covers a lot of ground in 3 strides. It's pretty impressive. Another note that I want to, a player I want to shout out is Tommy Farmer. We know that he's been rotating out with Easton Winfield in that left field position. Easton is going to be an incredible player for Texas, no question whatsoever. But I got to tell you, Rocky, there has been a spark. Easton got the start on Saturday, and Schloss has been switching him in and out. And when Tommy Farmer came in, we got to start calling him Tommy Rancher, because this kid is covering so much ground. He is not, he's taking care of things. He just brings this spark to Texas that is really exciting. And again, that Saturday game, it was an 11-7 game. It was a battle through and through. LSU goes up, Texas responds in a big way. LSU responds back. This was a back and forth. This was never a game that you felt like, oh man, Texas has this in the bag, right? Until the very end, where Texas said, you know what? We're taking it over. And I love to see what Schloss is doing. He is not afraid to switch guys out. He's not afraid to play with that roster, to get guys in and out, even making changes mid-game. It's been really wonderful. Rocky, you had some thoughts. You were watching. How was it?
I watched, I'm in Mexico, but I watched all weekend. I was really, really impressed with the pitching. Even on the Friday night game where there were some struggles, I was really impressed with the pitching. I know we saw on Saturday, was it Saturday that we saw Ruger Riojas, or was that Sunday?
Sunday. That was Sunday.
Yeah. And the most amazing thing was, well, we saw the freshmen come in, Valances come in early and then played and then pitched again later in the weekend. But I love, you posted this, you shared this video of Riojas about it. Just everything about him is just big baller.
Legend.
Legend. Let's watch this video of him talking. I love this. Here's the
quick start for Texas. Number 2 LSU. No pressure. Any nerves?
Not for us, it's playing the game, not an opponent. And we truly take that into like what it is. I just treated like I was on the bullpen, treating casual.
I'm throwing the bullpen.
Just casual. I'm chilling in my Motley Crue t-shirt, about waiting to get on the boat.
You kidding me? Kid gets his first start on a Sunday, and you always win on Sunday. That's the rule.
Of course.
And he absolutely dominates. And then he shows up in a Motley Crue shirt, his Birkenstocks, short shorts, and a trucker hat that says "Dominate the damn zone." If that isn't a vibe, I don't know what is. This kid, I love him. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. I actually told his parents this weekend. Ruger Riojas is like a vibe, right? If Quentin Tarantino was going to remake, if he was going to make a baseball movie, let's say he remakes Bull Durham, Ruger Riojas would be the feature. He'd be the star, and nothing about him would change. It would be exactly him. The 70s porn stash, the Motley Crue vibe, and all he does is dominate the damn zone. Listen, he had a great start, pitched his brains out. And Rocky, I love that you brought that up, because we know as Texas fans, Texas has had some woes with pitching. Their bullpen has been questionable here and there. And while I will say, ultimately, Texas still has a lot of work to do in that bullpen, they showed up when it mattered. What was really incredible was on Saturday, LSU went through 8 pitchers. He was pulling his guys quick. Yes, a lot of it was strategic, right? Like he'd get a guy in, wasn't doing so great right off the bat, and he'd pull his pitcher and replace him so that he was still saving him for Sunday. But Texas used 3 pitchers on Saturday. LSU went through 8. That was a big difference. And that's not something that we've seen from Texas in the past, in recent memory. Let's just say that. So
yeah, you and I were texting about that when they were going through pitcher.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for bringing this up. Dylan Valances, Rocky, let's talk about him.
Yeah. So so here he is. He got SEC Freshman of the Week for his pitching performance. But also, here's a clip. So D1 Baseball even gave a huge shout out to Dylan Valances this weekend, saying that he made the LSU, this is a quote from D1 Baseball, he made the talented LSU lineup look silly over the weekend. And then they put together some highlights.
2 away here in the 9th. The Longhorn fans are going to rise to their feet. 1-2. Strike 3 called. And Texas has its first SEC home win.
So, of course, against LSU at that time. But so this is then they go on to play, highlights of Valances for the rest of the weekend. But wow, what a performance! What confidence they must have in just like the development over the short time they've had them on campus so far, but just the potential. And then you hear the announcers talking about these are the youngins that are balling like this. Can you imagine how the potential they have over in the next few years or maybe they could leave next year with the baseball drafts, right? But the potential for these young pitchers who are being developed under Schloss now.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I want to talk about Riojas's final line. He
Okay.
pitched for 5.2 innings, 7 hits, 1 walk, 2 earned runs, and 6 strikeouts. It was absolutely a phenomenal performance. And again, like you mentioned, Valances came in. It was in just 40 pitches. Valances went 3.1 innings, striking out 5 batters and blanking the Tigers. So his only base runner was on a 2-out walk in the 9th. It was, again, does Texas have a little bit of room for improvement in the bullpen? Yeah.
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure. But to look at where we were, we talk about development, we talk about trusting the process, we talk about scheme and what's going on here. If you compare last year's team to now, the pitching has been night and day different. Pitching isn't perfect. Pitching still has some work to go. But in year 1, without a full season under their belts, the development has been really impressive from Texas. We talk about the Schlossnagel hire, how incredible it was that CDC pulled this off, right? Pissed off the Aggies, stole your coach after being a couple of plays away from winning a natty. Said nothing of it. Hides in a cemetery to steal your coach. I love it. That's just legendary stuff right there.
Legendary.
But I think we should also be talking about Max Wiener and what he has done for Texas, how he has coached up this bullpen,
Right.
how he has coached up the pitchers and the difference. And if this is what we're seeing in year 1, number 2 LSU coming in with a roster full of, again, LSU is a great team, a roster full of MLB players, and Texas can respond and take that series in a dominant fashion with their pitching combined with hitting. Holy crap, man. Like, I'm excited for where
It's coming
Texas is going.
together.
Absolutely.
So remember when we talked about this, that LSU fans travel on TV, it looked like a huge amount of good support from LSU fans.
Yeah.
I was a little bummed to see so many Longhorns sold their tickets to LSU fans, but they were there. We saw them also at the women's basketball game when LSU came to play Texas.
They show
we
up.
saw that. They show up, and good for them. They support their team. This was also really cool to see by Tiger Vibes, posted this on Twitter. Hate that we lost that series, but Texas is literally a championship caliber team. So it ain't the end of the world. We regroup, move on, Tigers forever. So what are your thoughts when the opponent says, is that just to lick their own wounds a little bit? That, well, we lost them, but they're a championship team. Or do you think they legit consider Texas a championship team?
Look, that Tiger
Vibes.
I will say this, that Tiger Vibes account, he is one that he likes to say that he coined the term goobs. He is incredibly anti-Texas A&M.
Okay.
I've been saying this for a while. I think the Texans and the Cajuns are cut from the same cloth. We just cook different. I'm really excited for this. But all of this to say, there is a mutual respect, in my opinion, between these two clubs, right?
Okay.
I think LSU sometimes gets a little big for their britches. Their fans get a little big for their britches when it comes to baseball. I saw some comments about, giving the vibe that LSU invented baseball. But at the end of the day, Texas is a blue blood. Texas is old money. LSU is new money. LSU is a damn good baseball program, and they've got history since the late 80s, right? I'm excited for this matchup. I'm excited for this Texas versus LSU in baseball, in football, in basketball. I'm looking forward to this rivalry moving forward in the SEC. But I will say this, Rocky, I do think there is, for the most part, a mutual respect between the two fan bases, between the two programs. Every fan base has their jerks. We ran into a couple for LSU. I saw a couple online. Texas certainly has its more than its fair share of jerks. No question there. But on the whole, I think these two programs really respect each other. So when you ask, is this cope or is this legit? I think it's legit. I think the respect is there, the understanding is there. We talk about baseball, it's a long season. Losing a series isn't the end of the world. Certainly losing a series at this point in your season isn't the end of your season. But programs that understand how to win can respect other programs that are winning. So Texas getting off to a 20-3 start, including,
Woo!
Yeah, look, that's impressive. They have one SEC loss starting out. So we still have to run the gamut. We're still very early in the conference play, but I think it's exciting. It's exciting.
Texas is 5-1 in the SEC after 2 series, including a road series and a series against number 2 in the country. Not bad. The preseason number 1 Aggies are 0-6 in conference play.
Where are they on this list?
I don't see them, and they're the fastest ever in the history of ranking baseball to drop out of the top 25, starting at number 1. But look at the top 5, all SEC. And look at OU up there at number 8 and Alabama hanging in at 10. So 7 of the top 10 are SEC teams. Texas still has to face a few of those, including, Georgia coming up quickly. So we see that on the rise for Texas. But to be, at least we know there's lots of baseball polls. Texas is in the top 10, and everyone I've seen, I think, so far. So what a rise to be on the trajectory up and putting getting that building that resume and competing at a high level. That's fantastic. And of course, the Tuesday night craziness, we're going to talk softball in just a second, but we have to mention Tuesday night craziness. A lot of top 10 teams, top 25 teams lost, including number 2 Arkansas lost at home in the 10th inning to Missouri State. That was shocking. But, those Tuesday night things happen. Like last week, Texas lost to UTSA and then wins the series against LSU.
Tuesday's wild. And again, you can always kind of tell the folks that have just started watching baseball, certainly college baseball. Tuesday nights, anything can happen. I feel like these are the nights that you want to bring out the crazy bingo cards. Just make up some crazy shit, put it on a bingo card, and that's your Tuesday night game, because that's how it plays out. Texas played a really good game against a struggling Bearcats team for sure. Sorry, Jim Thrasher. I love you, man. But yeah, Sam Houston State came in on a Tuesday with hopes of upsetting Texas. Those hopes got dashed pretty quickly. Texas really, again, responded. Run ruled the Bearcats on a Tuesday night, winning 13-3 on a walk-off. Now, Rocky, I'm going to ask you this question.
Okay.
The walk-off was a pop fly that was mishandled near first base. The ball was dropped. That allowed a run to come in. That made it the 10 run in the bottom of the 8th. Do you call that a walk-off, or do you call it, are you willing to give it a walk-off title if it was done because of a drop ball? Not a home run.
To me, if it's one play that ended it, I guess I could give it, even if it was an error on their part. I guess so. I don't know.
I'm calling a walk-off.
I'm not the baseball, scorekeeper person that goes back to see, was it scored a drop or was it scored an error? I don't know.
It was absolutely an error. Zero question. I mean, he
Yeah.
could have had the ball, touch his glove, hit the ground. But the reason, and now I'm going to pose another question to you. I don't know if we have this video to pull up quickly, but there was a celebration. Yes, it was a Tuesday game. Yes, we have conceded that Tuesday games can be wild. Yes, we also know that Texas is a great program. They've been there, done that. But there was a celebration out in center field. So it was actually Gumbo that the younger Duplantier that hit the pop-up ball that brought in the winning run. And the celebration was pretty great. The team, as they do, they met out near second base. But they were wild. They poured out of the dugout. They poured out of the bullpen. Water was going everywhere. And I would offer this, Texas fans. I agree. You want your team to act like they've been there, done that, a random Tuesday night game. Maybe don't lose your shit. But I think this was more about the player that did it versus the score and being a Tuesday night game. Because like I said, it was younger Duplantier. He doesn't always get in. He has limited at bats. He has limited time. So the fact that he could get that win, chalk it up to him. He brought the winning run in. They all celebrated around second base, and then they all ran out to the Yeti yard where
Oh, that's
not one,
special.
not two, not
I saw them all going out to the Yeti yard.
absolutely. There were 3 homers this game that went in, 2 that went into the Yeti yard, and then Gasparino went 423 yards over, which put it over the Yeti yard. So the team celebrated with the students out in the Yeti yard, and it was a lot of fun. Listen, I am a big proponent of act like you've been there before, but for this, you celebrate the player. What are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
Yes, that was a good special moment because especially because we talked a lot about this season. They're having fun, right? And when you're you're up big, or it's a Tuesday night and you're up big, there's an opportunity for younger players, including Jonah Williams. We know the
Jonah got in, absolutely.
Yeah, Jonah Williams. We talked about him being number 9 now with the football team. This spring he's with the baseball. He got to see some action. So you're excited for them when they know that the work they're putting in and how exciting it is for them to get an opportunity to contribute on the field, or family to get to see them play. But I was going to say is you'll be very proud of me.
Yeah.
Because I thought you'd be very proud of me, because here last Friday was Richard's birthday and we had a bunch of friends over at the house for his birthday. And some of the friends, one of them had a friend visiting from the UK, right? And I had the laptop up. I was watching the baseball outside and everything, and he was not familiar with baseball at all. But he enjoys American sports and learning about American sports. He's familiar with baseball, but didn't know it other than it's maybe kind of sort of related to his rounders, right? So as we were watching baseball, you would be so proud of how much I was explaining to him about the full count and the
stole my heart.
Out can't be a strike once he already has 2 strikes, and the force out and the pop, the sack fly and the sack bunt. You would be so proud.
My heart is bursting.
He thought I was a genius about baseball, and I'm like, I don't even I only know enough to watch it and enjoy it, right?
Sure.
But he thought I knew so much about baseball.
Look, you do.
Mostly, not to get off track, but mostly we were comparing UK collegiate athletics, which is a non-existent thing really, to the system of American collegiate athletics. And that was most of the conversation. But we were watching the game. I was trying to watch the game. And so we're explaining to him about the game. And you would be so proud of how much I knew about the game.
I am. Look at that. Look, I know you've always been a baseball fan, but I like to think that I've had a little bit to do with your excessive dedication to it at this point.
Yes. All right. So let's make sure we chat a little bit about softball, because we want to make sure we give the women, lots of love. First, let's start with their record. They are now, after the big 11-3 run rule of SFA, the women are now 32-2.
Is that good? It feels like that's pretty good.
Is that good? Well, they're now ranked number 1 again in the country in a few of the rankings. They were down to just one ranking, having them as number 1. Now, after OU took a loss to Missouri this past weekend, they are now number 1 in the country in a few of the polls. So congratulations. The women have number 1 seed basketball. They have number 1 rowing. They have number 1 softball. So much winning. They have national champions in swimming and diving. Just so much winning for the women right now. Congrats, women.
Absolutely. Look, I think we should point this out with Texas. Auburn, again, Texas sweeping Auburn in the SEC play. I hope I'm not stepping on myself here when I say, I believe this was the first SEC series at home for Longhorn softball. But let me double check. Yeah, they played at Florida to start it off. Auburn here. Texas sweeps Auburn. I will say this. Auburn gave a pretty good fight. They gave a pretty good fight on Saturday. Texas winning that series again, 12-2 on Friday. They did that in 5, so run ruled them. Auburn came back. They responded 7-5. Texas ended up winning. That was on a walk-off by Katie Stewie, none other than Katie Stewie. And again,
Here it
Texas
is. You want to see it?
Yeah, I do. Let's show it.
K-Stu, say goodnight to that one.
It's gone. She gone.
First lead of the ball game.
Bottom of the 7th, down by 1, and she just hits a 3-run homer to win by 2. Wow.
Listen, and
Wow.
I will say that Stewie, we know, can hit the ball. She has been absolutely incredible. She's been in a little bit of a slump here recently. There is no better way to break a hitting slump than a walk-off homer to bring it home, a 3-run homer to win 7-5, bottom of the 7th. Absolutely incredible. And then again, Texas run ruling Auburn on the other 2 games. So what I really like about this softball team, again, we've talked about this with baseball. We've talked about this with some of the other sports. How softball is responding, I think, has been really important to watch this team. Backs against the wall. Again, they go into number 3 Florida, at Florida, to open conference play, do an absolutely incredible job there, and then come home for their first home series. And their backs were against the wall on Saturday, dominate on Friday, backs against the wall on Saturday, and they respond, dominate on Sunday. This team, Rocky, I've got to say, feels special. Feels really special. Is this the year that Mike White gets over that hump? I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential here. Of course, softball still has to go to Oklahoma and play at Oklahoma, which is never an easy task. Let's just not mince words here. At Oklahoma against Patty Gasso. But this Texas team, y'all, I'm telling you, if you haven't watched softball, if you haven't gone to the game, we talked about this earlier, the excitement of the game, how these teams are playing, how they're playing for each other. Softball's got a vibe, man. It is a ton of fun. And this team is super hyped up for each other. They're playing really, really, really good ball. Absolutely incredible to watch. So shout out to the women there. Keep it up. Again, they've lost 2 games this whole year, period. 2.
It's wild. Well, this weekend they're at number 18, Mississippi State, Friday, 6 p.m., Saturday, 2 p.m., Sunday, 1 p.m. So I'm sure it's probably streaming like SEC Plus Network Plus or something, but you'll find it online this weekend if you want to watch the women. So Megan, let's just cover a couple of quick top stories and then we'll wrap up. I know it's getting late, especially because you got a lot going on. So we got to give some love to national champions of the swimming and diving. Won some national championships this weekend. Got some All-American recognition. Texas beach volleyball, so fun. They had the East-West tournament. They have the East-West tournament coming up soon, and they won. Oh, that was in Austin, and they won 4-1 against. They beat number 13 Grand Canyon. They beat number 9 Cal. They beat number 2 Louisiana Monroe. No, they lost to Cal, but they beat number 2 Louisiana Monroe, and they beat Arizona State. So racking up top 25 wins. And then this is pretty cute. They're going to Death Valley. That's pretty cute. They're calling it Death Valley in Baton Rouge.
Death Valley. I like it.
That's pretty cute. So this coming weekend, so cute. This coming weekend, they have number 5 Stanford, number 9 Long Beach State, number 1 UCLA, and number 4 USC. So they're not joking around with this schedule. These tournaments are crazy competition.
Yeah. And again, keep in mind, this is a brand new program for Texas. This is just year 2. Last year was the inaugural season, but Texas didn't even play a full season last year. So this is the first full season that Texas beach volleyball is playing, and they're doing well. It's pretty impressive. We know Texas is a volleyball school. We know they recruit elite talent, and that's showing with beach volleyball too. So fun to get out there if you can, fun to support them if you can. It's a fun sport, man. Like we said, the women holding things up here.
All right, we'll give some love to Kelsey Daniel, Field Athlete of the Year. Texas Longhorn track and field. He's the Field Athlete of the Year. So congratulations to Kelsey Daniel Longhorn. So I have a couple of funny things that I wanted to share with you, Megan. Some like NFL kind of funnies. You're a big Houston Texans fan, right?
Yeah, Lions and Texans, those are my teams.
Yes. Okay. So you've heard about fake CJ Stroud, right? The guy who like is the identical twin to CJ Stroud. He
Yeah.
worked his way into the rodeo. Did you see this? Watch this video.
No, they had to put us through the door. The security just let us in with my camera. Because I couldn't go to the front door. Doing good? That's what you do. Yeah, you take it.
I mean, he looks like CJ Stroud. For those listening, like this guy has the thick dreads, the twists.
Okay, so he is not CJ Stroud. He's just the guy that gets around looking like CJ Stroud. He got into the rodeo for free, snuck into the whatever secret entrance.
Question: if you looked like a celebrity, would you ever pay for a meal? Let me ask you.
No, if anyone is silly enough to believe that that's me, then I'm going to roll with it, right?
I think the best part of that is he's wearing a CJ Stroud jersey.
Exactly.
Like I've never seen an athlete wear their own merch jersey out and about. Like that should have been your first clue, folks. What are you doing here? But listen, more power to him. If he can game the system, and to be clear, he looks exactly like CJ Stroud. That is, I hope that the Texans pick that up, and I hope they do some kind of like collab with this guy because that's pretty funny. He does look exactly like him.
He does. Okay, so this was funny a couple days ago, but since Juju Watkins has been hurt, it's not as funny, but it's still kind of cute. So we know Jaden Daniels, superstar quarterback of the Washington Commanders. This is Mama cock blocking so hard because here she is. Here she is, chilling, watching the games with Jaden Daniels, and then here comes Mama.
She's like, "Nah, we good. We're just gonna sit in between them." All right, I need your take. I'm not a parent, so I don't have like a ton of insight here other than my opinions. You are a parent. You have raised several.
I'm
kids.
not a parent of a NFL quarterback who's worth $100 million. So
no, that's fair.
I do not understand this perspective, but I do understand like protecting your children. But I mean, it's not like this is just some little troll girl. This is Juju Watkins, a superstar in her own right, making her own money in her own right, an elite athlete in her own right, and still Mama was like, slide over.
Listen, Juju can make her own money. She ain't after him for his money. Let's be super clear about that. Like,
yeah, but any distraction is a distraction, I guess. In this case,
I guess, but at what point do you check out and be like, all right, he's a grown ass man. Let's let him do his own grown ass man thing. Like, come on now. Like that is an adult. He plays in the NFL. Like, at what point do you back off as a mother? Like, it's cute and it makes sense when they're younger and they're still developing that cerebral cortex, right? That frontal lobe. I get it. But at a certain point, I would think you've got to back off as a mom and let him live his life. The man plays in the NFL. She's not a scrub, to your point. Like, this isn't some gold digger. She makes her own money. She's a star in her own right. If anything, I would think you'd be encouraging that kind of hookup, that kind of relationship.
No distractions. Okay, so I'm going to pick 3 quick topics to share with you. We have a list of fun stories, but I'm just going to pick 3 because it's getting late. I want to show you this video. I know you said we're not parents, but we still defend our children, right? Here we go. Watch this. It's a coach who comes and pulls this high school girl by her ponytail. And fortunately, this other teammate, the young girl, gets in there and barks back at the coach. He's been fired since this. But what would you do if you saw a coach assaulting a girl this way?
Listen,
like pulling her by her ponytail.
I understand the concern about, are we too soft? Is this generation too soft? Blah, blah, blah. But in no world is it okay for you to put hands on your player. He grabbed her by the I mean, she's clearly in distress before this. She's upset. She's like, I think she's tearing up. I don't know the full context of this clip. So to be
I think
clear,
they
like I'm
lost a semifinal or championship game or something, like a high level game, but not to where you put
so
hands on them.
especially in that context, your players are showing emotion. And I think this is something that, you know, we talk about consistently. Mental health matters. Showing emotion matters. It doesn't make you weak to show emotion. This is an emotional moment for a player. And instead of a coach coming up and consoling his player and telling her, like, hey, you fought hard, you did good, using the moment to mentor, he literally physically assaults her, grabs her hair and yanks her head down, yanks her head back, snaps her head back. Listen, man, I'm all for tough coaching. I'm all for tough love, but that ain't it. You don't put hands on your players like that. You don't and more power to the teammate. I wish I knew who she
Yes.
was, because that, let's be clear, that's a difficult thing to do, to stand up to this authoritative figure, to your head coach,
Obviously a bully.
who's obviously a bully, and in an emotional heat of the moment incident, to be able to have to be aware enough to be like, hey, that's not okay. And again, these are young players. This looks like high school, maybe. Like, you, for her to be aware enough of the situation to step in. She doesn't get aggressive, she doesn't get ugly, she just puts space between, right? She steps up to her coach and says, that's not okay, separates the player that the coach had pulled her hair, and gets in between them. Like, kudos. Instead of focusing on this jerk that put hands on the player, I'm going to give kudos to the player that stepped in and defended her teammate. She was absolutely in the right. She did the right thing to step up to this bully of a coach who at every opportunity he was given to be a mentor and to be a good dude, he skipped out on that opportunity. So good on for her for to step up, get in the way and say, hey, no, that's not okay. And you can see her clearly arguing with him. No, don't do that. Don't touch her.
This is
Not
the
okay.
kind of guy you can tell this was not his first incident of being horribly awful to these young women, because he had no problem doing it in front of the entire arena or court or all the parents. And
nail on the head.
Can you, this makes me so mad. And it's not even about, oh, it's he's old school or no, that is abuse. I don't care what year we're living in. Why don't you go pick a fight with a grown ass man? Why don't you go pick a fight with her dad? No, you have to pull on a young woman, a young girl.
Again, I'm going to shout out the teammate for having more emotional maturity than her coach did, her old ass coach. Good for her. Good for her. I'll say that.
If that was my daughter's, if he pulled my daughter's hair, you would have saw me fly.
You'd be in jail right now, my friend.
I would have leaped over people.
You want to see assault? I'll assault you, fool. You don't touch my kid.
All right. Okay. So let's have some humor. So last week, San Diego played Austin FC, and Austin FC won 2-1. And so San Diego tweeted GG, like good game. You know, I had to go look up what does GG mean. Apparently it's good game. And then this is what, this is what happens when I have too many windows open. So they put good game, Austin. And then this is what Austin FC chose: violence.
Go yourself, San Diego. Go yourself, San Diego.
Listen,
they got the.
As I'm all talking about sportsmanship and how you should behave, I'm also for a good social media moment. And this, to me, I think there has been some saltiness between these two clubs prior. So I appreciate that they responded, again, tongue in cheek, all in good fun. But I love me a good social media response. I'm here for it.
Amazing. So if you're listening, they put the Austin FC logo on top of, what's his name in the
Ron Burgundy.
Thank you, Burgundy. Ron Burgundy is standing, go F yourself, San Diego. They put Austin FC's logo on his face while he's talking. That was just that media person chose violence. And I had to message our friend Rick, who's massive Austin FC, who would know if there was any backstory, like what's going on? Why are they so salty? He's like, just chose violence.
Just chose violence. Sometimes you just choose violence.
It's so hard to pick all the great stories because there's so many great top stories. So I'm going to give you one last top story, and I want your thoughts on this, Megan. We talked about this last week, and there's new addition to the story. So last week we talked about talking about spring games, and that Deion Sanders was one of the coaches who actually mentioned, hey, we should do a spring game against another team and make it a real scrimmage and all the possibilities. Syracuse stepped up, and apparently they're in the works to maybe try to pull off a spring game together. And that was the story there. Well, the latest in this story is Gundy. Did you see what Mike Gundy, still a coach of Oak State after like 45 years. This is what he had to say about the possibilities of pulling something off. Watch this.
Games, and especially now with Deion going to court to try and take on Syracuse in an exhibition.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's something that we've talked about. I think it's a great idea. I had kind of forgot about it until it got brought up.
No, you didn't.
Somebody texted me something about that, and when you read it, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, honestly, for us, we should do a home and home with OU in the spring. They have I think ours is on, I don't know what the date is, but it's a Saturday prior to the last week, something like that. Okay, so they should come here on the 19th, and I think theirs is earlier in the year. We should go down there and play a home and home in the spring against them. Charge $25 a head. They can use it for NIL. We'll use it for NIL. If they don't want to do 2 in one spring, we can do one here this year, do it there next year, and split the gate.
Oh, I forgot all about it. But also, we could do $25 a person, and we could split them up, and we'll do home. But you hadn't thought about it?
Look, I think he was probably spitballing there. My argument here, once again, if you are cutting off spring games and you're using the excuse that our players are exhausted, we need the time to develop, we don't want to run them into the ground, how are you going to offer another game here? I don't know. I think
how are you going to trust one of your hated rivals to not lay your QB out for the season?
Exactly. Look, I think, do I think college football is better with Bedlam? Hell yeah. I think Bedlam is a great rivalry. OU dominates in that, but I think it's a great rivalry. Gundy is always good for a sound clip, right? But all that being said, you can't sit here and talk about worrying about your players being exhausted and the health of your players and then suggest something like this to replace a spring game. I don't know. It would people sign up for it? Probably. Listen, we both know that OU struggles for money at times. They were charging people for their spring game. So I guess make it more interesting and bring Bedlam back in a spring game. I don't know. It just listen, I'm going to piss some people off here. It sounds like poverty to me. Again, I am all for bringing Bedlam back, but bastardizing it like this and making it some weird hybrid home and away spring game-ish kind of thing that we're also going to charge you for.
And it's going to be called the XFL.
Yeah, right? Like, sorry that you're poor. Like, I don't know. I don't love it. I don't love it. I just don't think you could talk about player health and player safety and then be like, oh yeah, let's throw on another game with our heated rival that means literally nothing and we have all of this to risk.
All right. Hilarious. Okay. We could talk all night. There's so many fun top stories, but we'll end there because we've already gone late. And thank you everyone who stayed and watched. That was a blast. One last question I did get asked. Miracle Martinez, have you tried Los Abuelos tequila yet? Make sure you bring a bottle back for your home bar. I couldn't remember the name of it when you said it last week. So no.
But now you will.
Now I will remember, and I know I will look for it, but I don't maybe I'll look for it in the duty free because I don't want to check in a bag. I never check in a bag because I despise checking in a bag. So if I buy it now, I have to check in a bag. So I'll look at duty free and then I don't have to check in a bag.
That's fair.
Yeah, but if you insist that it's amazing, I'll look for it tomorrow or whenever I'm at the airport, not tomorrow. Anyway, okay. But
All right.
thank
Well,
you.
hey, again, we appreciate y'all being here as always. Thank you, Rocky. I think we clicked that at the same time. As always, y'all, it helps us out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Again, we are at Fire the Cannon Podcast on YouTube, on Instagram and Twitter. We are at Fire the Cannon and the number 1. Like and subscribe. Be sure to comment on the videos. That always helps us out. We appreciate y'all being here. As always, y'all, I'm Megan.
I'm Rocky.
And we are Fire the Cannon. Hook 'em.